Villisca, Iowa. A quiet American town where nothing loud ever happens, except what the wind remembers. For more than a century, one white farmhouse has stood on the edge of town like an open wound. The locals call it the Moore Place. Some still cross the street rather than pass its gates. The story is old, but the house still breathes. In 1912, the Moore family, Josiah, Sarah, and their 4 children, were found murdered in their beds. 8 people in total, bludgeoned in their sleep by someone who was never caught. That night, Villisca learned the sound of silence. It's said that even the morning birds refuse to sing. Since then, no one has truly lived in that house for long. The walls remember, and sometimes they whisper. I came here in October 2015. My name is Megan Brooks. I host a true crime podcast about America's darkest unsolved cases. Villisca was supposed to be another episode. I wanted facts, not fear. A week in the house, interviews with locals, and maybe a small bump in listeners. But from the first night, I realized some stories don't want to be told. They want to be lived again. The air inside was cold, heavier than it should have been. The floorboards moaned under my shoes, as if they recognized an intruder. I set up my recorder, placed cameras in the rooms, and left a single light on. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then I heard it, a slow creak from upstairs, a child's step. I froze listening. Another step, softer, followed by a faint giggle that didn't sound alive. I told myself it was the house settling, nothing more. But when I replayed the audio later that night, I heard it clearly. A whisper close to the mic. "Why didn't you save us?" The voice was small, trembling, and definitely a child's. My heart pounded. I tried to rationalize. Maybe some old recording leaked. Maybe my mind was tired. But the timestamp showed the whisper came exactly when I was downstairs, completely alone. The next morning I met Mrs. Walker, the oldest resident on this street, 92 years old, sharp eyes, hands that shook when she spoke of the Moors. She told me about the footprints, tiny bare prints that used to appear in the dust long after the murders, about the hymns people heard at midnight, about the boy who went missing after daring his friends to knock on the door. "The house keeps what it wants," she said, gripping her cane. "You should leave before it remembers you." That night, I ignored her warning. I wanted proof. I sat in the children's bedroom, recorder in hand, camera rolling. The air felt charged, like before a storm. A toy horse rocked gently in the corner, though no wind touched it. I could hear faint breathing beside me, too soft to belong to anything living. I turned the flashlight on, and for a split second, I saw them. 3 children standing near the wall, pale and still, faces blurred by shadow. Then the light flickered, and they were gone. I ran downstairs, shaking, the sound of footsteps following on the stairs behind me. When I reached the living room, the clock had stopped. The hands pointed to 12:17, exactly the time the murders were said to have happened. The house was silent again, but that silence felt alive, like it was listening, watching. I ended my recording there. My podcast script was ready, but when I pressed play to review, the audio had changed. My voice was there for the first 2 minutes. Then it cut out. What replaced it made my blood run cold. A soft lullaby, sung off-key by children's voices. The lyrics weren't clear, but one word repeated again and again. Stay. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window staring at the moonlit fields, wondering if I should leave. But something in that house wanted me to hear the rest of its story, something unfinished. And somehow I felt it wasn't done with me yet. When the clock struck 3, the air turned colder. Somewhere above, the floor creaked again. I picked up my recorder, hands trembling, and whispered, "If you're still here, tell me why." The answer came instantly, so close. It felt like it was inside my ear. We never left. To this day, I don't know why I stayed in that house after hearing those words. Maybe curiosity, maybe madness, or maybe the dead had already decided for me. Night rolled in over Maple Creek, wrapping the small Kentucky town in a cold silence. The kind of silence that makes you feel watched even when you're alone. Emily sat in the dim light of her rented house, her phone flashlight pointed at the floorboards. She'd found something. An old iron key, wedged between the cracks. The key was cold, almost too cold to touch. She turned it in her hand, and for a second, she thought she saw movement in its reflection. Behind her, a shadow. "Hello," she whispered, her voice trembling. The air grew heavy, pressing against her chest. From the corner of the room, a faint scratching sound began. Then another. Then another. Like nails dragging slowly across wood. The sound moved closer, toward her. Emily backed up against the wall, her breath shaking. She turned her phone's light toward the noise. The wall in front of her was covered in fresh scratches. 3 deep lines that hadn't been there before. She ran out of the room and grabbed her camera. The footage showed nothing but static. Then, frames of a pale figure standing in the doorway watching her. Its head was tilted, its mouth too wide, like it was trying to smile. He shrugged. "Probably someone messing with you," he said. "That house has been empty for years. Kids sneak in, make a mess." "But I locked every door," Emily replied. "And the scratches," Sheriff Whitaker interrupted. "Maple Creek's got stories, Miss Sanders. Don't let 'em crawl into your head." But that night, she couldn't shake the sound. The dragging, the whispering. Around 2 a.m., she woke to the sound of her TV turning on by itself, flickering static lighting up the dark living room. The screen showed a faint outline of the same pale figure again. It wasn't a reflection. It was standing inside the room, behind her. Emily screamed and ran upstairs, slamming the bedroom door shut. Her phone vibrated, unknown number. One message. "The key opens what was never meant to be found." The room temperature dropped suddenly. Her breath came out in visible fog. Then she heard it. The same voice from the TV, whispering just behind the door. "You shouldn't have come back." Emily, her eyes widened. Come back. She had never been to this town before. The next day, she went to the local records office. An elderly clerk hesitated when she mentioned her address. "That place," the woman muttered, "belonged to the Hargrove family. They were found dead in '92. Sheriff said it was a murder-suicide. But folks around here know better. Said the husband found an old key buried under the floor, just like you did. After that, he went mad." Emily froze. The same key. That night, she placed the key on the table and decided to burn it in the fireplace. The flames crackled high, but the key didn't melt. It screamed, a sharp metallic scream that echoed through the walls. Then she saw them, the Hargroves, standing at the edge of the living room. Faces blackened, eyes hollow, skin burnt. They moved closer, whispering the same line again and again. "You shouldn't have come back." Emily fainted. When she woke, she was lying in the basement, chains around her wrists. The air reeked of decay. On the wall in front of her were words carved deep into the cement. The key unlocks the door between. As she looked up, she saw an old iron door in the far corner. The same key was in her hand again. She didn't remember picking it up. And then the door began to open. The iron door creaked open, releasing a foul stench that made Emily gag. It wasn't just old air. It smelled like rot, blood, and something far older than death itself. Inside was nothing but darkness. Yet she felt movement within it, breathing, watching. Her trembling fingers gripped the key. Still hot from the fireplace, a whisper echoed from inside the darkness, soft and wet like something speaking through torn flesh. "Welcome home, Emily." She staggered backward, but the chains on her wrists clanged tight. The basement light flickered, then died completely. In the pitch-black silence, she could hear something crawling toward her, its nails scraping along the stone floor, slow and deliberate. "Who are you?" she cried. A voice answered, multiple voices, layered together. Some male, some female, some animal-like. "We are what the key remembers." A pale arm shot from the darkness, grabbing her ankle. Its touch burned cold like dry ice. She screamed and kicked, but it dragged her toward the black doorway. Her nails tore against the floor as she clawed for anything to hold on to. Then, suddenly, light filled the room again. Sheriff Whitaker stood at the top of the stairs, shouting her name. "Emily, what the hell's going on down there?" She turned toward him, tears streaking her face. "Help me, it's got me." The sheriff ran down and fired his gun into the darkness. The sound was deafening, but the creature didn't flinch. The bullets vanished into the void. Then the dark reached for him, too. Whitaker's scream was short and sharp. The lights flickered once more, and when they steadied, Emily was alone again. Except for the key, lying in a pool of blood. She grabbed it and stumbled up the stairs, but the house was no longer the same. The walls breathed, shadows pulsed. Every picture frame showed faces she didn't recognize. People screaming silently behind glass. She ran out into the street, gasping for air. Maple Creek was dead silent. Every house was dark, no cars, no wind. It was like the entire town had been emptied overnight. Then she saw them, hundreds of figures standing motionless in the street, facing her. The Hargroves were among them, but their faces were joined by others, people from every era, every decade. Eyes hollow, mouths stitched shut. Each one held a rusted iron key. Emily fell to her knees as they began to whisper in unison, their voices merging into one chilling sound. "The door is open. The world remembers." She looked at the key in her hand. It pulsed with light, heartbeat light. And then she realized the truth. She hadn't opened the door. She was the door. The world around her began to twist and bleed. The sky turned red. The ground cracked open. The figures dissolved into smoke, their whispers fading into distant laughter. The next morning, police found the Maple Creek house burned to the ground. No body was ever found. Only one thing remained untouched in the ashes. A small iron key, perfectly clean, warm to the touch. Months later, a couple from Ohio bought the land and began rebuilding. On their first night, the wife found something under the new floorboards. An old key, cold as ice. A child's voice whispered from the dark. "You shouldn't have come back." If you enjoyed this terrifying Halloween story, make sure to tatitaya, subscribe for more real horror tales every week. Like the video if it sent chills down your spine. Comment mail your thoughts. Would you dare unlock the door? Itinerary Matt. This story with someone who loves a good scare. Until next time, keep your doors locked and your lights on.